The stars looked different from the observation window of the alien flagship. They shone in strange colors, forming patterns that no human chart had ever recorded before. The human soldier stood silently near the entrance of the Grand Diplomatic Hall, his posture straight but his eyes constantly moving. He had been trained to notice everything, the shift of shadows, the small movements of guards, and the silent tension that lived in the air between enemies trying to become allies. This mission was supposed to be peaceful, but peace always carried hidden danger. Humanity had only recently joined the wider galactic community. Many species saw humans as unpredictable, emotional, and sometimes reckless. Still, humans had earned respect through courage and persistence during several conflicts along the outer colonies. Now the Human Alliance had sent a diplomatic team to meet one of the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. The meeting would decide whether centuries of distance and mistrust would turn into cooperation. The alien empire's royal flagship was massive, built with elegant curves and glowing structures that felt alive. The architecture was beautiful, but also intimidating, reminding visitors that this civilization had existed long before humanity learned to travel between stars. Everywhere the human soldier looked, he saw silent alien guards, standing perfectly still, their armor reflecting soft lights. They kept distance from each other in a strange way, as if invisible rules controlled their movement. At the center of all this mystery was the alien princess. Stories about her had spread across the galaxy. She was known as Untouchable. According to legend, no one could make physical contact with her without triggering a powerful defensive reaction. Some believed she carried an ancient energy within her body that rejected touch. Others said it was a sacred blessing from her ancestors. Whatever the truth was, even her closest advisors never approached her too closely. She lived surrounded by respect and fear, like a living symbol instead of a person. The human soldier had heard many versions of these stories during training briefings. Most officers warned him to follow protocols strictly. Never step too close, never break formation, never act without permission. He understood the importance of discipline, yet something about the way others spoke of the princess felt wrong to him. They described her as an object of tradition rather than an individual with thoughts and feelings. The large doors opened slowly, revealing the diplomatic chamber. The human delegation entered carefully, guided by alien attendants. The room was enormous, shaped like a circle, with layered platforms rising upward. Soft light filled the space, creating a calm atmosphere that contrasted with the tension everyone felt. At the far end stood the princess. She wore elegant ceremonial clothing that flowed like liquid metal, shifting colors with every movement. Her posture was calm and graceful, but the soldier noticed something deeper. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, observing each person carefully. There was intelligence there, but also loneliness. She stood alone on a raised platform, while others remained at a distance, as if an invisible wall separated her from everyone else. The negotiations began with formal greetings. Translators adjusted their tones to bridge the gap between languages, turning alien sounds into clear human speech. Diplomats exchanged prepared statements about peace, trade, and mutual protection. The soldier remained silent, watching for danger. His training told him that major political moments often attracted hidden threats. Time passed slowly. The discussion grew more intense as both sides addressed past conflicts and misunderstandings. The princess spoke occasionally, her voice calm and steady. Unlike the rigid diplomats, she seemed curious about humanity. When she mentioned human history, she focused on acts of bravery and cooperation, rather than war. The soldier noticed how she leaned slightly forward whenever humans spoke, as if searching for something beyond the official words. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A faint sound echoed from above. Too quiet for most people to notice, but the soldier's instincts reacted immediately. He turned his head, scanning the upper platforms. One of the decorative panels moved slightly. Without thinking, he stepped forward, positioning himself closer to the princess's platform. A flash of light cut through the air, An energy projectile flew toward the center of the chamber, aimed directly at the princess. Chaos erupted as guards reacted too late. The human soldier moved on pure instinct. He jumped onto the platform, reaching for the princess as the projectile approached. For a brief moment, time felt frozen. He grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the attack. Everyone expected a violent reaction. Legends said that touching her would trigger a powerful energy surge. Alien guards gasped, preparing for disaster. But nothing happened. No explosion. No energy shock. Only silence. The projectile struck the floor where she had been standing moments earlier, sending sparks across the chamber. Security forces rushed forward, capturing the attacker hidden among the diplomatic staff. The immediate threat ended quickly, but the true shock remained focused on one detail. The human soldier was still holding the princess's arm. He realized what he had done and released her immediately, stepping back with respect. The chamber filled with whispers and disbelief. Alien advisors stared as if witnessing something impossible. Even the princess looked down at her own hand with quiet amazement. She slowly lifted her gaze toward the human soldier. Instead of anger, her expression showed curiosity. There was no sign of pain or discomfort, only surprise. Medical officers rushed forward, scanning her with advanced devices. They spoke rapidly in their language, clearly confused by the absence of any defensive reaction. The council members began arguing, some demanding explanation, while others ordered the area secured. The human soldier felt every eye on him. He stood still, unsure whether he had just saved a life or broken a sacred law. He prepared himself for punishment, knowing that crossing cultural boundaries could have serious consequences, yet deep inside, he felt no regret. His training told him that protecting others came first, regardless of tradition. The princess raised her hand gently, signaling everyone to remain calm. Her voice carried authority without needing to be loud. She said that the human had acted to protect her and deserved respect, not blame. The room slowly quieted. As the situation stabilized, the princess continued watching the human soldier. There was something new in her gaze, not distance or formality, but genuine interest. She asked for his name and thanked him personally. The simple gesture shocked many observers, because royal protocol rarely allowed such direct acknowledgement. Later, after the chamber cleared, discussions filled the palace corridors. Some officials believed the incident proved that old legends were wrong. Others feared that the human had somehow disrupted sacred traditions. The human delegation waited anxiously, unsure whether the mission would continue or end in disaster. Meanwhile, the princess stood alone near the observation window, looking at the stars. For the first time in many years, she felt something change within her. The barrier that had always separated her from others had not reacted to the human's touch. Instead of fear, she felt calm. She wondered whether the stories about her had shaped reality more than truth itself. Perhaps being untouchable had never been about power, but about distance. The human's action had broken not only protocol, but also an invisible wall she had lived with her entire life. Across the corridor, the human soldier waited for instructions. He replayed the moment again and again in his mind. He remembered the warmth of her hand, the absence of any energy reaction, and the look in her eyes afterward. He knew that something important had changed, though he could not yet understand what it meant. The diplomatic mission continued, but nothing felt the same. The human had unknowingly started a chain of events that would challenge ancient beliefs and reshape the future of two civilizations. And somewhere deep within the vast alien flagship, a princess who had always been untouchable began to question the boundaries that defined her existence. The incident inside the diplomatic chamber changed the atmosphere across the entire royal flagship. News spread quickly through official channels and quiet whispers alike. Guards spoke carefully among themselves, scientists reviewed recordings again and again, and advisors argued over explanations that made little sense. For centuries, the alien princess had lived under strict rules, shaped by tradition and fear. Now a single unexpected moment had created doubt about everything people believed. The human soldier returned to his assigned quarters after the event, expecting interrogation or punishment. Instead, he was placed under observation, which felt more uncomfortable than discipline. Alien researchers asked detailed questions about his biology, his training, and even his emotional state at the moment he touched the princess. He answered calmly, repeating the truth. He acted only to protect her. There had been no special plan, no hidden technology, and no attempt to challenge their customs. The alien scientists struggled to accept such a simple explanation. They scanned him repeatedly, searching for energy signatures or genetic anomalies. Every test returned normal results. To them, this was more confusing than discovering something unusual. The idea that nothing special about the human caused the event forced them to question their long-held assumptions. Meanwhile, the princess faced pressure from her council. Senior advisors requested private meetings, urging caution. Some believed the human represented a potential threat to tradition. Others feared that public knowledge of the incident would weaken the Empire's image of strength. The princess listened patiently, but her thoughts remained focused on the moment when the human had grabbed her arm. She remembered how natural it felt, how safe rather than dangerous. For years, she had accepted the belief that physical contact would trigger uncontrollable energy. She learned to maintain distance from childhood, trained to control her movements carefully. Servants placed objects within reach so no one needed to come too close. Guards protected her without ever touching her. Even family members kept respectful distance. She had never questioned it deeply because it was presented as truth. Now doubt grew quietly within her. She requested to see the human soldier again. This decision surprised many advisors, but she insisted it was necessary for understanding what happened. The meeting was arranged in a controlled environment with medical teams and security forces ready to respond if anything unexpected occurred. The human entered the room carefully, aware of the attention surrounding him. He stood respectfully, waiting for permission to speak. The princess studied him closely. Without the chaos of the attack, she noticed small details. His calm breathing, the way his eyes moved with quiet awareness, and the lack of fear despite being surrounded by unfamiliar technology. She thanked him again for saving her life. He responded simply, saying he was only doing his duty. The simplicity of his words made her smile slightly. Most people spoke to her with formal language filled with praise or fear, but he treated the situation as normal. After a moment of silence, she asked if he remembered how it felt when he touched her. He hesitated, unsure how to answer without causing offense. Finally, he said that it felt like touching any other person. Warm, real, and human. The answer surprised her deeply. She had expected him to describe strange sensations or energy reactions. But medical staff suggested repeating controlled physical contact under supervision. The room grew tense as they prepared. The human waited for her signal, unwilling to move without permission. Slowly, she extended her hand toward him. For a brief moment, hesitation filled the space. Centuries of tradition warned against what she was about to do. He gently reached forward and touched her hand. Nothing happened. No energy surge, no alarm. Only a quiet sense of calm. The medical devices recorded stable readings, and scientists exchanged confused looks. The princess felt her heartbeat quicken, not from fear but from realization. She had spent her life believing herself separated from others, yet this simple moment proved otherwise. After the test ended, she dismissed most of the observers, requesting privacy with only a few trusted attendants. She began asking the human about his people, their customs, and how humans viewed connection and trust. He spoke about teamwork, friendship, and the human belief that strength often came from standing together rather than alone. Their conversation felt natural, almost effortless. The human did not treat her like a fragile symbol. Instead, he listened carefully and answered honestly. This created a feeling she rarely experienced, being seen as an individual. Outside the room, political tensions continued to grow. Some factions within the empire saw opportunity in the situation. If the princess could safely interact with humans, perhaps new alliances could form. Others feared that changing traditions would weaken cultural identity. Secret meetings took place, and hidden agendas began shaping decisions behind the scenes. The human delegation also faced pressure. Human commanders worried about his safety and the possibility of misunderstanding alien customs. They considered recalling him, but the princess formally requested that he remain as her personal guard. She explained that his presence helped maintain stability after the assassination attempt. Reluctantly, both sides agreed. Days passed, and the princess and the human spent more time together during diplomatic activities. He accompanied her through palace corridors and public appearances. Observers noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She walked with more confidence, occasionally stepping closer to others than before. The invisible distance that once surrounded her began to fade. During one evening walk through a garden filled with bioluminescent plants, she spoke openly about her childhood. She described growing up surrounded by rules that prevented ordinary experiences. She had watched others form bonds and friendships while she remained separate, always protected but never truly connected. The human listened without judgment, offering simple understanding rather than advice. He shared stories of human struggles, how humans often faced fear but chose courage anyway. He explained that bravery did not mean absence of fear, but acting despite it. His perspective helped her see her situation differently. Perhaps being untouchable had not been a fixed destiny, but a result of emotional isolation, reinforced by tradition. Unseen by them, political forces continued moving. A group opposed to peace negotiations began spreading rumors that the human was manipulating the princess. They believed that weakening old traditions could shift power balances within the empire. Plans formed quietly, aiming to remove him from her side. One day, during a diplomatic gathering, tension reached a new level when a senior advisor publicly questioned the princess's judgment. He suggested that relying on a human might compromise the empire's dignity. The room fell silent, waiting for her response. She answered calmly but firmly, stating that courage and loyalty should be valued regardless of origin. Her words surprised many, showing a stronger and more independent voice than before. The human remained still behind her, aware that his presence alone now carried political meaning. Later that night, security teams intercepted a hidden communication, revealing a second assassination attempt planned by extremist factions. The princess realized that the threat against her was far from over. Instead of retreating into isolation, she chose to face the danger directly, supported by the human soldier and a small group of trusted allies. As preparations began for increased security, she felt a growing sense of control over her own life. The human's presence did not weaken her strength. Instead, it helped her understand that connection could enhance power rather than reduce it. Standing once again near the observation window, she looked at the stars differently. The galaxy no longer felt like a distant stage where she performed a role defined by others. Instead, it felt like a place full of possibilities waiting to be explored. The human soldier stood nearby, silent but attentive. Neither of them fully understood where their journey would lead, but both sensed that the events unfolding around them were larger than politics or tradition. Something fundamental was changing, not only within the empire, but within themselves. And as the next crisis slowly approached, their growing trust would soon be tested in ways neither could imagine. The royal flagship no longer felt like a place of calm diplomacy. After the discovery of hidden threats and rising political tension, every corridor carried a sense of alertness. Guards moved more frequently, and security systems scanned constantly for danger. The princess noticed the change immediately. The peaceful environment that once surrounded her had transformed into something heavier, filled with silent worries and unspoken questions. The human soldier stayed close to her side, not as a symbol, but as a protector who had earned trust through action. He watched everything carefully, noticing the small shifts in behavior among the palace staff. Some greeted the princess warmly, while others avoided eye contact, clearly uncertain about her changing role. The rumors spreading across the empire had begun to shape people's reactions. Despite the tension, diplomatic discussions continued. Leaders from different species arrived on the flagship, hoping to secure alliances before conflict spread further. News arrived that a rival coalition had gathered forces near the border systems. Their leaders believed the empire was distracted by internal division and might be vulnerable. This created urgency among the council, forcing decisions to be made faster than anyone expected. The princess attended strategy meetings where military commanders debated possible responses. For the first time, she spoke more openly, asking direct questions instead of remaining silent. Her confidence surprised many senior officials. Some admired her strength, while others worried that her growing independence might challenge old hierarchies. The human soldier noticed the change as well. She no longer stood apart from discussions. She stepped forward and engaged with people directly. During one meeting, she moved closer to a commander to examine a tactical display. The room fell quiet for a moment, as many realized she had crossed the invisible boundary she once maintained. Nothing happened, no energy reaction. Slowly, people began to accept that the old belief about her being untouchable might not be absolute. Outside the official halls, the princess and the human shared quiet conversations that helped both of them understand the situation better. She asked about human warfare and how humans handled fear during conflict. He explained that fear often existed alongside courage, and that trusting others allowed individuals to overcome challenges that seemed impossible alone. One evening, they walked through a long corridor lined with ancient artwork representing the empire's history. The princess paused before a mural, showing past rulers standing alone on elevated platforms, separated from others by glowing barriers. She realized how deeply the idea of isolation had shaped her lineage. Every ruler before her had been portrayed as distant and unreachable, almost more symbol than person. She wondered whether her people had confused strength with separation. Meanwhile, intelligence reports confirmed that the rival coalition was preparing a direct strike. Their plan involved targeting the royal flagship itself, hoping to destabilize leadership and create chaos. The council debated whether to retreat or confront the threat. Many advisors suggested moving the princess to a hidden location, returning her to strict isolation for safety. She refused. Instead, she insisted on remaining present during the defense planning. Her decision shocked traditionalists but inspired younger officers who believed leadership required visibility during difficult times. The human soldier supported her quietly, ensuring her safety while respecting her authority. As preparations continued, scientists approached her with new findings about her energy field. After studying the earlier incident with the human, they discovered that the energy was not a curse or uncontrollable force. It was a sophisticated biological defense system designed long ago by her ancestors. Its purpose was to protect against hostile manipulation by creating a barrier triggered by emotional stress and distrust. This revelation changed everything. The energy responded not only to physical contact, but also to emotional signals. The reason it had not reacted to the human's touch was because she felt genuine trust and safety in that moment. The system interpreted his presence as non-threatening, allowing contact without activating defense mechanisms. Understanding this gave her a new perspective. The barrier had not been imprisoning her. It had been responding to her own emotional isolation. By learning to trust and connect, she could influence it consciously. The human listened carefully as she explained the discovery. He encouraged her gently, saying that she had always possessed strength. She simply needed to see it differently. Their conversations grew deeper, built on honesty rather than ceremony. Suddenly, alarms echoed throughout the flagship. The rival coalition had arrived sooner than expected. Warships appeared near the outer defense perimeter, launching coordinated attacks against communication arrays and defense satellites. The palace filled with urgent movement as officers rushed to battle stations. The princess remained calm, stepping into the command center alongside military leaders. Explosions flashed across tactical displays. As enemy ships advanced, the human stood beside her, ready to react at any moment. Instead of retreating, she focused on the battle, asking strategic questions and offering ideas that surprised experienced commanders. Her perspective, shaped by both tradition and new understanding, allowed her to see patterns others missed. During a critical moment, an enemy strike team breached an outer corridor, attempting to reach the command center directly. Security teams engaged them, but the fight created chaos inside the flagship. The human guided the princess through secure passages while coordinating with guards. They reached a defensive position where she could assist in directing troops. Stress filled the air, but she felt something different within herself. The energy field she once feared began responding to her focus. Instead of forming an uncontrolled barrier, it flowed calmly around her, like a shield shaped by intention. The human noticed faint light forming around her, but said nothing, trusting her control. As the battle intensified, she realized that fear no longer ruled her. Trust in her allies allowed her to channel the energy consciously, protecting nearby guards from incoming attacks. Soldiers who once kept distance now fought confidently at her side. Between waves of conflict, a quiet moment appeared. The human checked on her, asking if she was all right. She looked at him with gratitude, understanding that his presence had helped her reach this point. Without thinking too much, she stepped closer. There was no hesitation. She reached for him, and he responded naturally. The connection between them felt simple and real, without pressure or expectation. In that moment, surrounded by chaos, yet protected by trust, he dared to kiss her, not as rebellion or challenge, but as reassurance that she was more than a symbol or weapon. The energy around her stabilized completely. Instead of reacting unpredictably, it became calm and controlled, like a shield responding to her will. She felt clarity she had never experienced before. The barrier that once separated her from others now became a source of strength she could share. The moment lasted only seconds before reality returned. Another wave of enemy forces approached, forcing them back into action. Together they returned to the command center, where she used her new control to lead defense efforts more effectively. Commanders noticed the change immediately. Her voice carried confidence, and her decisions brought coordination among units that had previously struggled to work together. Inspired by her presence, soldiers fought with renewed determination. The battle continued for hours, testing every defense system the flagship possessed. Gradually, the enemy forces began to retreat, realizing that their plan to exploit weakness had failed. As silence returned to the command center, exhaustion mixed with relief. The princess stood quietly, processing everything that had happened. She understood now that her strength did not come from being untouchable, but from learning to connect without fear. The human remained beside her, not as a savior, but as a partner who believed in her potential. Outside the windows, damaged ships drifted slowly while repair teams moved into action. The threat had not ended completely, but a new chapter had begun. The princess had embraced control over her abilities and discovered that trust could transform even ancient defenses into tools for unity. And as the galaxy watched the aftermath of the battle, few realized that the greatest transformation had occurred not in the war itself, but in the heart of a leader who had finally stepped beyond isolation. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the fighting itself. Damaged ships drifted slowly outside the flagship, and repair teams worked without rest. Inside the command center, officers moved carefully, speaking in quiet voices while reviewing reports. The rival coalition had retreated, but no one believed the conflict was truly over. The attack had changed more than military positions. It had changed how people saw the princess and the future of the empire. She stood near the large viewing window, watching the distant stars while reflecting on everything that had happened. For the first time in her life, she felt fully present, rather than separated by invisible expectations. The energy that once made her untouchable now felt calm and balanced, responding to her thoughts rather than controlling them. She understood that her strength had never been about isolation. It had always been about choice. The human soldier stood nearby, giving her space, but remaining attentive. He noticed the difference in her posture. She no longer carried the quiet weight of distance that had once surrounded her. Instead, she moved with natural confidence, greeting passing officers with a small nod or a brief word of encouragement. Many of them returned her gestures with genuine respect, not distant formality. News of her actions during the battle spread quickly throughout the fleet. Soldiers spoke about how she stood beside them rather than above them, how her presence brought unity during chaos. Even skeptical advisors began to reconsider their opinions. The image of an untouchable ruler started to fade, replaced by the image of a leader who could connect with others. The Royal Council called an emergency meeting to discuss the future. Representatives from different factions gathered in a circular chamber filled with quiet tension. Some argued that the princess's new approach represented progress, while others feared it would weaken traditional authority. The debate grew intense, but the princess listened calmly. Before speaking, she explained that the Empire faced a new era. Dude-bound isolation had once provided safety, but the galaxy was changing. New alliances were forming, and survival required cooperation rather than distance. She spoke about trust, not as weakness, but as strength that allowed different species to stand together. Her words carried clarity and confidence, shaped by recent experience. Many council members felt the impact of her transformation. She was no longer repeating inherited beliefs. She was shaping new ones. Though some remained cautious, few could deny that her leadership during the battle had saved countless lives. Meanwhile, the human delegation prepared to leave once diplomatic agreements were finalized. The human soldier received orders to return with his unit after the mission concluded. He accepted the decision quietly, understanding that duty required him to continue serving wherever needed. Yet he felt a subtle tension, unsure how to say goodbye to someone who had become important to him. The princess sensed this change as well. During a quiet moment in the palace gardens, she asked him about his future assignments. He answered honestly, explaining that soldiers rarely stayed in one place for long. His life involved constant movement, responding to new challenges across the galaxy. She listened carefully, feeling both pride in his dedication and uncertainty about what it meant for their connection. For the first time, she realized that leadership required accepting change without holding too tightly to what could not remain the same. As days passed, preparations for a final diplomatic ceremony began. Leaders from different species gathered to witness the signing of a new alliance agreement between humanity and the Empire. The ceremony symbolized more than political cooperation. It represented a shift away from centuries of separation. Before the event, the princess spent time alone, reflecting on her journey. She remembered childhood lessons that taught her to remain distant, the loneliness that came from being treated as sacred rather than human. She thought about the moment when the human soldier first touched her, breaking the invisible barrier that defined her life. That single act of courage had started a chain of change she could never have imagined. During the ceremony, she stood among representatives instead of on a separate platform. The decision surprised many observers, but sent a powerful message. She signed the agreement alongside human leaders, acknowledging partnership rather than hierarchy. Applause filled the chamber, echoing through the halls like a new beginning. Afterward, celebrations spread throughout the flagship. Music played softly, and people from different species shared stories and laughter. The princess moved freely among them, speaking directly with individuals rather than remaining distant. Many felt inspired by her openness, sensing that a new era had begun. Later that evening, she and the human soldier stood together near the observation window where they had shared many conversations. The stars outside looked calm again, though both new challenges still waited beyond the horizon. She thanked him for everything he had done, not only for saving her life, but for helping her see herself differently. He replied that she had found her own strength. He had only been present at the right moment. Their words were simple but carried deep meaning. They spoke about the future without making promises they could not keep. Instead, they acknowledged that their connection had changed them both. For her, he represented courage and honesty that broke through ancient traditions. For him, she represented hope that even the most powerful systems could change through trust. As the time for departure approached, the atmosphere felt bittersweet. The human delegation prepared their ships while the princess watched from the landing platform. Crowds gathered to witness the farewell, understanding that history had been shaped by this partnership. When he approached to say goodbye, there was no hesitation. They stood close, sharing a quiet moment without words. The energy around her remained calm and steady, no longer a barrier, but a symbol of balance. Their connection did not need grand declarations. It existed in simple understanding. He boarded his transport, and the ships began to rise slowly into space. She watched until they disappeared among the stars, feeling both loss and gratitude. The galaxy felt larger now, filled with possibilities rather than boundaries. In the months that followed, the Empire changed gradually. Policies shifted toward cooperation with other species, and new cultural exchanges began. The princess traveled to different worlds, meeting people directly and learning from their experiences. Her leadership inspired others to question traditions that limited connection. Stories about the human soldiers spread across the Empire, becoming a symbol of bravery and compassion. Some exaggerated the tale into legend, but she remembered the truth. It had been a simple act of courage that changed everything. One day, as she stood on a balcony overlooking a new alliance gathering, she felt a quiet sense of peace. She was no longer defined by being untouchable. She had chosen connection, and that choice shaped the future of her people. Far away, the human soldier continued his missions, carrying memories of the princess and the transformation they shared. Though distance separated them, their bond remained a reminder that even small actions could reshape entire civilizations. The story did not end with a final victory or perfect resolution. Instead, it opened toward the future, where trust and courage continued guiding new paths. And across the vast galaxy, the legend of an untouchable princess and a brave human soldier became a symbol of hope, proof that understanding could bridge even the oldest divides, and that humanity's greatest strength often came from daring to reach out when others hesitated.